Killer 7 has one of the most contested plots in video games, not because it's simple and under-discussed, but because the game itself resists being pinned down. There is a companion guidebook, Hand in Killer 7, that fans often lean on to fill gaps, but it frequently contradicts the game and isn't even consistent with itself. This account sets that book aside entirely, and what follows is only what the game itself shows and says. It's cutscenes, it's scripted dialogue, it's on-screen narration, with nothing imported from outside material. The game's own opening narration establishes the setting. On July 3rd, 1998, all international disputes were resolved, marking the start of what the game calls true global peace. The world's major powers formed anti-terrorist and peacekeeping organizations to maintain order, but the peace didn't hold, and a group calling itself Heaven's Smile, led by a figure named Kun Lan, began carrying out bombings across the world for no stated purpose beyond terror. In response, the American government turns to the Smith Syndicate, a team of specialized assassins known as the Killer 7. Led by an elderly, wheelchair-bound man named Harman Smith, who the game establishes has a long personal history with Kun Lan. Harman himself is unusual, even within this premise. Rather than simply directing his team, he's able to manifest 7 separate personas into the world, each with a distinct body and fighting style. The player controls these personas directly throughout the game. The first mission has Harman fighting an angelic enemy that appears defeated only to rise again, mocking him. "You think you killed me? Better think again." After finally destroying it, Harman meets Kun Lan directly for the first time in the game. Their exchange is oddly familiar, almost like old rivals meeting again. Kun Lan attempts some kind of trick that fails, and Harman remarks that nothing has changed between them in 30 years. The scene ends with Harman shooting a bullet into Kun Lan's glowing hand, setting him flying onto a nearby skyscraper. This mission contains one of the story's most direct, unambiguous reveals. A mysterious man says to Garshin on screen in scripted dialogue, "My name's Harman Smith. You were the killer." In an incident where 6 people were murdered in this hotel, the assassin, Amir Parkreiner, was the ace of aces. Who would have thought the killer was a mere 13-year-old? This isn't inference or fan reading, it's stated directly in-game to Garshin's face. Elsewhere in the same mission, a woman named Julia warns him, "Yakumo will destroy your country. Back off before you get hurt," before biting into a pendant that explodes. The mission closes on a quieter, more reflective note. Garshin and his handler, Christopher Mills, watch aircraft passing overhead, and Mills admits they've grown numb to the violence around them. "What's sad is that we've gotten used to this. It's pathetic," Garshin replies. "That doesn't necessarily mean that we're not human." The title card that follows reads, "Laughter is the countdown of devastation." And the mission Cloudman opens with a televised broadcast. A flamboyant man named Andre Umida, introducing himself as the man with the plan, predicts on live television that something terrible is about to happen at a concert taking place behind him. As he speaks, the venue explodes, killing the crowd inside. Umida treats this explosion as validation of his own prophetic power and directly challenges Garshin to find him, declaring he has founded a new faith. When the Killer 7 track him down, Umida suddenly detonates in a massive explosion that kills the soldiers around him, transforms into a Heaven's Smile himself, and continues to fight until the team manages to hit his weak point and bring him down. And the Encounter mission centers on Curtis Blackburn, a man the game establishes on screen as having abducted, abused, and killed children, and trafficked their organs on the black market. The mission opens with Curtis massacring an immigration office, killing everyone present except one girl. The Smith Syndicate tracks Curtis through an amusement park and then to his residence, where Dan Smith, himself a former protege of Curtis's, confronts him in a laboratory beneath the house. The two face off in a gun-drawn duel. Curtis fails to kill Dan and attempts to take his own life. But Dan instead triggers a switch activating a device Curtis had used on his own victims, which empties and stuffs his body. The mission's closing title card reads, "The maidens save the world with their laughter." The Killer 7 are sent after Trevor Pearl Harbor, a man believed to be secretly directing a group of former government-sanctioned heroes, turned terrorists, called the Handsome Men. On the way, the team passes through what a local warns them is a lost city, navigating winding streets before reaching a church and encountering a brief, cryptic figure referred to as an oracle, named Mithra, who delivers a short message about light and darkness before vanishing. Immediately afterward, the team fights an enormous variant of a recurring enemy type large enough to fill the entire church hall. The confrontation with the Handsome Men themselves ends with one of them, Handsome Pink, transforming into a separate entity called Love. Late in the game, Garshin moves through the Union Hotel, the same hotel referenced back in Sunset, and on each floor sees a vision of the other 6 Smith Syndicate members being killed in their rooms. This is the game confirming, visually and directly, what Sunset had already told him in words. He is Amir Parkreiner, and it was he who killed the original Killer 7 at this hotel years earlier. On the roof, he encounters a vision of his own younger self. He shoots it in its third eye, and in response, the vision turns the gun on itself. The final mission, Lion. Whatever the choice the player makes, Ymir ends up back in Harman's room inside Grayson's trailer. Harman is shown lying comatose on the floor. The game then jumps forward, exactly 100 years. Harman Smith and Kunlan are shown again, this time in Shanghai, still locked in the same conflict that opened the game. Harman shoots Kunlan's hand in a near-exact repeat of the Angel opening. Kunlan lands on a nearby skyscraper and says, "Harman, the world won't change. All it does is turn. Now, let's dance." The credits follow. Taken purely on its own terms, no guidebook or outside interpretations, Killer 7 confirms a surprising amount directly. That Garshin is Amir Parkreiner, that he killed the original Smith Syndicate at the Union Hotel, and that Harman and Kunlan are locked in some kind of recurring, seemingly endless conflict that survives being settled again and again. It also confirms, through its recurring title cards and the exchanges between Garshin and Mills, a consistent tone that everyone inside this world has grown numb to the violence surrounding them. What it does not resolve, even in its own script, is basic chronology. Kunlan says outright in dialogue that time here is warped, a line the game never clarifies or walks back. Characters return after apparent deaths without explanation. The relationship between Harman's separate personas and Amir's own identity is shown but never mechanically explained. Figures like alter egos Oracle appear for a single scene, deliver a fragment of meaning, and vanish without follow-up. The game ends exactly as it began, a century later, with the same 2 figures repeating the same act. That repetition is really the closest thing that Killer 7 offers to a stated theme, and it's not subtext, it's the last thing the player is shown. Everything that came before, all the twists and reveals along the way, resolves not into an answer, but into a loop. If this one resonated, subscribe. New essays drop weekly, and you never know what's coming next. Share it with someone who'd get it, and leave a comment. I want to know which door this opened for you. Mystery Compendium. The archive is always open.